Every hobby comes with its highs and lows, but the lows of Warhammer just hit so much harder. I think it's because a game of Warhammer is often 3 hours long, and it just exacerbates those bad feelings to no end. I'm going to jump right into this one, but before that, I just want to say thank you for rocketing me towards 20,000 subscribers. This is only my 7th Warhammer video, but we've already cultivated such an incredible community. You guys are the best. What's not the best is Games Workshop's balancing team, which leads us to bad feel number 1. Oops, my army is unplayably strong. A game like Warhammer with 20 odd factions to choose from requires very careful balancing, even more so than any video game. Sure, a game like League of Legends has way more characters to choose from, but unlike picking a character in a video game, people spend hundreds if not thousands to play their army. And at that point, Games Workshop is obligated to deliver a fun and balanced game to use any army in. But Games Workshop's approach to this delicate balancing act comes with all the subtlety and nuance of a tin opener circumcision. It's an agonizing mess. A new codex so rarely falls unbalanced. People often accuse Games Workshop of making these books blatantly overpowered on purpose to sell models, but I honestly don't think they do. And I believe this because for every demonstrably broken book that comes out, there's another one that's almost unplayably bad. I just think Games Workshop is really bad at writing codexes. I went to Italy last weekend, and it was tough trying to get around without speaking Italian. Luckily, we spotted some English speakers outside of a club, a couple of American lads. They mustn't have had a very good evening though. They got very aggressive when I asked if anyone wanted a Tabletop Stronghold is the only place to grab yourself a Mag Case 2.0. Magnetic grip, durable MDF, and an awesome display window. You all know this by now. But I bet a lot of you didn't know that Tabletop Stronghold also offer a complete competitive terrain bundle. As someone who's just began to dip my toes into competitive 40k, I found out the hard way that 4 sideways Heinz ketchup bottles and a grinder doesn't make for an exciting game of Warhammer. Tabletop Stronghold's Terrain Set 2.0 allows for fair and balanced games of Warhammer, but it doesn't just stop at 40k. This terrain set is also compatible with Age of Sigmar, Kill Team, Star Wars Legion, War Machine, and a bunch of games no one's ever heard of. If you even think of playing Halo Flashpoint on this terrain set, it will explode and kill you instantly. Go to Tabletop Stronghold to grab yourself a Mag Case 2.0 and Terrain Bundle set for a fat discount. Then discount that bad boy even further with code GROT25 for 25% off. And of the two options for your codex, unplayably strong or unplayably bad, I honestly think it feels worse to receive a broken codex. Here's my experience with it. Now this might come as a shock to you guys, as I only mention it in every video I've ever made, but I'm an Imperial Knights player. I love my stompy robots, and recently I've started to repaint them. They were in dire condition and painted awfully, but now that I'm a lot more experienced in painting, I've got these puppies shining. Like, I seriously love how my knights look now, and I'm so eager to get them on the tabletop. Except just as I started reprinting these, Games Workshop made the baffling decision to drop the most outrageous point buffs I have ever seen on an army that was already considered top tier in the meta. Knights were so broken for months, and in that time, my friends just wouldn't play against my knights. No one would. If you showed up to an event where you had to play against your opponent, even the most sporting of opponents would take a deep, sharp breath upon seeing your army. It stinks, and it just leaves you feeling like a dirty meta chaser for bringing your favorite army. People will excuse this and tell you to just bring a casual list, but that's such shallow advice. For many people, even the most casual players, optimizing your list is a huge part of the fun. Like what? You want me to spend my time optimizing my army and buying new models until what? I lose enough game to meet some magical quota? It sucks. But what really makes this, in my opinion, the worst feeling in Warhammer is that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. In fact, the opposite's true. At the end of the tunnel lies a fat man in a suit wielding a silicone nerf hammer dangling between his trousers. Bad feeling number 2. You've been sentenced to 10 years of bad army jail. Now that you've spent the last 3 months as a social outcast amongst your wargaming peers, Games Workshop has finally responded to the outcry of hate towards your faction with a knee-jerk reaction. Games Workshop doesn't attempt to nerf armies in a reasonably or fair manner. They will render your army completely unplayable and leave it that way for years. Whilst I tend to keep these videos fairly jovial to keep these videos from being too doomery, I don't want you to get me wrong, you should be angry when this happens to you. Not only is it lazy and greedy to do this, above all it's anti-consumer. This also happened to me very recently. The only army I love as much as my knights at the moment are my Slaneshi demons. And for the last couple of years, Slaneshi's demonic thralls have been okay. Some units like Shalaxi have certainly shined over the years, but they've never been too meta-relevant, nor weak either. But during Grotmus, each Chaos God got its own demonic detachment, and the Slanesh one was just too strong. Its detachment ability allows you to forego the inherent fight first you get when you charged, in return for full rerolls to hit and wounds. That's essentially double the damage output in return for taking a hit in melee first. The detachment was incredibly cool and powerful, if not a little unflavorful. Slaanesh isn't the type to want to take a hit first. But at the top levels of play, this detachment was quite abusable. The tragedy here is this detachment shouldn't have been that hard to balance. How about instead of full rerolls to hit, we just do +1 to both? Still strong, which is important as you give up your fights first in this detachment, but not quite as destructive as full rerolls, and then maybe tweak some of the problematic stratagems if it's needed. Apparently that's more work than Games Workshop was prepared to do for this detachment, which is a shame because this was an awesome detachment worth putting effort into. So here's what Games Workshop did. They changed it to reroll 1s. Well, that's unplayable now. Who's giving up fights first for reroll 1s? That's certainly a shame, but at least I can play my Slaaneshi demons in other detachments, right? Of course not, because Games Workshop is so unwilling to maintain a balanced game, they just decided to gut every single Slaanesh unit. Absolutely tore them asunder. They even sent some of them to Legends mid-edition just for laughs. This was just despicable. May I remind you that Slaanesh demons were in a pretty healthy spot before the Grotmist detachment. So basically, Merry Christmas, here's 3 months of fun followed by years of unplayable garbage. Enjoy. And that's only years of unplayable garbage if you get to keep your army in 11th edition. We haven't quite decided yet. Fuck you. I feel like of all the bad feelings in this game, the awful balancing is the most obvious one. So I'm going to do some more subtle feels bad moments now. Starting with Feel Bad Moment 3, when the rule of cool doesn't work out. I've been interacting with my community a lot more on Discord, and something I really didn't expect was just how many of you are brand new to Warhammer, only in the first steps of picking and choosing your army. One of the most prevalent pieces of advice you'll get as a new player is to follow the rule of cool. Stats and rules will come and go, but a cool model will always be a cool model, and that's definitely true. But the rule of cool isn't always gospel, and when the rule of cool doesn't work out for you, it can be crushing. To make this once again all about me, I think Emperor's Children are the coolest army in the game. The lore, the themes, the models, everything. From moment 1 of being in this game, I knew this was the army I wanted to play in. No matter how numbers and stats change, Emperor's Children will always be the coolest army to me. But numbers and rules are important, especially the latter. I've spent so much time and money recently putting my Emperor's Children together, and I've played countless games in the last 2 months to try to get really good at the army for London GT. But you know what? I don't like playing the army at all, actually. The fast and precise melee gameplay just isn't for me. I've always preferred a long-range shooting style of gameplay, which for the longest time Emperor's Children was. Spamming 48-inch battle line noise marines and getting benefits to shooting. But as the adage goes, rules change. And despite the rule of cool still being true, I love how this army looks. I just find it sad to play, and that's a truly crushing feeling. For my newer players out there, I would suggest starting with the rule of cool as a base to figure out what armies appeal to you, and then look online to see how those armies play, and if that still appeals to you. It's very rare for an army's playstyle to change as drastically as Emperor's Children did, but it can happen. If this is your very first Warhammer army and you don't know what style you'd like to play, consider what you play in video games. I prefer long-range shooting armies, and in video games, I often find myself playing characters that can cause explosions from the other side of the map. Bad feel number 4. I don't really have a snappy name for this one. As I just mentioned, I spent the last 2 months slowly painting up my Emperor's Children, and it was rough to begin with. Pink is a very hard colour to work with, and I wanted my guys to be really pink. My first batch of blokes looked awful, and I was so ashamed of them, but I stuck with it, and I got better and better until all of a sudden, my guys were looking pretty good. And after a few more weeks of trying, they were looking great. I was so happy with these models. Like, check out my first Emperor's Children model and the one I'm currently working on. It's night and day. I'm so happy and proud of my current work, but there is one super annoying thing going on here which I can't find a good name for, and it's just ruining it for me. And it's this. As I get better and better at painting, and as I get more proud of my results, I'm not actually enjoying painting any more than when I first started. In fact, the inverse is probably true. As I implement more finer techniques, it's becoming more tedious. I was expecting to fall in love with the act of painting as I improved, but I'm still not enjoying it in the slightest. And I just find myself not painting. And this might just be the worst feeling in the video. To be fair, I've never really been that into painting to begin with. I've always enjoyed the gaming side of Warhammer. And this probably isn't even really a Warhammer issue. I think this is just a personal life thing. If you find yourself not enjoying painting even once you've got good at it, there's still ways around it. I've recently fallen in love with sponge painting, which is a method of speed painting which involves very little actual painting but yields awesome results. I'll link some videos in the description if that sounds like something you'll be interested in. And now we'll have a bit of a rapid fire round. For bad feelings, I don't have have too much to say on. Obviously, it sucks to have a game where you just low roll all the time. That would be really scraping the bottom of the barrel to make a point out of. But I think it's a really uniquely sucky feeling to roll way too high for an entire game. Like the first time you make 8 out of 8 saves, you and your opponent will both have a nice chuckle about it. But after the 5th time, there's a good chance that your opponent just gets real sulky. Lots of eye rolling and little quips like, man, I wish I could make saves for once. And when you do win a game where you just high rolled the whole time, it feels so hollow despite any actual tactical acumen you might have showed throughout that game. It always sucks when a model you want to use is bad. But there's just something so gut-wrenching about a model being bad for a stupid reason. Fulgrim is one of the coolest models they've ever made, and no matter how much people doom post about him, he really isn't that bad when you break it down. Sure, he has exactly the same weapon profile as a Mauler Fiend while costing a cool 3 times as much, but fights first on a model this punchy is insane, and it will just wall certain melee armies out of the game. It's a real shame then that he's glued to a fucking dinner plate! Fulgrim, who should be the most nimble and agile of all Primarchs in game, is actually by far the slowest, because you can't fucking move him anywhere. And why? Why couldn't he be on the same base as the other Primarchs? It might have been a little tight, but he absolutely fits on the same base. Are they really that desperate to sell more Astrogranite debris? Plus, it's just so annoying that there's 4 Chaos Primarchs and one of them breaks the symmetry with their bases. That feels bad. I think Warhammer's culture of looking down on conceding games early feels really bad. When you're as awful as me, games are decided pretty early on. Like, I do get why it's frowned upon. Warhammer, more than any other hobby, has so much setup. You spend about an hour unpacking your army and setting up terrain and deploying. But there are a few feelings worse than overextending turn 1, getting wiped, then having to live with the consequences for the next 2.5 hours. It just stings. Finally, the worst feeling in all of 40k, having a conversation with your dad about Space Marine chapters, and then opening up r/Dark Angels in public. Don't open up r/Dark Angels in public. Worst mistake of my life. There's a lot of negative aspects to Warhammer that can sometimes make it feel like it's not worth it. But it's important to remember how vastly the positives outweigh the negatives. Now, I'm not going to make a follow-up video to this one talking about it. I barely wanted to make this slop video. But I'm currently working on 2 of the biggest videos I've ever conceived, simultaneously. One will be out next month, and the other will legitimately need like another 6 or so months. Very ambitious stuff. But to leave this video on a happy note, I do need to mention the biggest good feeling in all of Warhammer. The feeling that keeps me going through every Games Workshop price hike, and every game I roll 1,000,000 ones, and every Warhammer video where I get called racist and woke in the same comment section. Make up your minds, people. And that's the fact that we are finally receiving Dawn of War Last Stand 2 next year, people. This is the most exciting thing to happen to me ever since I discovered playing with my thing. When this shit drops, I'm gonna do a 24-hour marathon on Twitch. I am beyond excited. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. London video is out next month and it's shaping up to be my magnum opus, so keep your eyes out. Cheers.